Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our study of Gibran's Prophet. We are in lecture number 20 on friendship. In some ways we're back to lecture number 3 on love and lecture number 5 on children one more time. Now I've suggested that we're kind of in the middle of another one of these trinities, as I called it, from teaching to friendship to finally talking, and I find that when you read these 3 poems together, they do work rather nicely as a unit. Now our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left hand side is our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already been introduced to our introductory set of comments, and then all of the previous lectures we just finished with the classic on teaching passage. Now, in some ways, this is a natural transition from teaching to friendship. In other words, we've got a certain kind of spiritual view of what it is to teach and what it is to be a friend. We're, of course, looking at an integral view of community, shared experience, and the like. And in some ways, Gibran is calling on the most ancient philosophic traditions. Of course, Aristotle wrote a lot about friendship. Think about St. Augustine's Confessions. By the way, we've given lectures at learnstrong.net on all this stuff. You'll remember that Augustine loses his best pal and has a whole lot to say. Beautiful passages in Confessions about his pal, his friend. You'll remember in our lectures on Emerson that he said, to have a friend, you must be one. You'll remember in his classic essay. So let's turn now to this passage and notice that it's going to be a young person who will ask about friendship. Now, like much of the poems of the prophet, Al-Mustafa is going to give us some questionable, challenging views, insights that will leave us thinking and musing, and we'll hear it here for sure. And a youth said, "Speak to us of friendship," and he answered saying, "Your friend is your needs answered. He is your field, which you sow with love and reap with thanksgiving. And he is your board and your fireside. For you come to him with your hunger, and you seek him for peace." Now, many have pointed out that this farming word picture suggests a certain kind of one-sided view of friendship, and it is true. If this is all that Gibran said, we might be able to make that argument. But notice we're going to move on. By the way, just notice, your friend is your needs answered. What an amazing line. Think about your pals. And you'll remember that we said in our study of, for example, the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, we've given full lectures at learnstrong.net, or Virgil's Aeneid, for example. The value of a pal. It's fascinating to sit down and read all of those great classics and just simply ask, what is being taught here about friendship, right? I mean, for example, you could pick up the Gospels and read those 4 Gospels and just look at it from the perspective of friendship and see, wow, there's some very interesting ideas. And Gibran seems to be kind of capturing a lot of that. Notice, your field, your friend is your field where you sow with, notice it's love, and then you'll reap with thanksgiving. Everything for Gibran always seems to come back to gratitude. Have you guys noticed this? It's always about gratitude, thanksgiving. In other words, respecting what you have and enjoying that. Then he continues, "When your friend speaks his mind, you fear not the nay in your own mind, nor do you withhold the I, the A, the agreement." In other words, think of it this way. For Gibran, the foundation of friendship is trust and freedom. We always seem to come back to freedom as well, don't we? The liberty to be able to say whatever you want to say without fear. You'll remember that passage on love perfect, love casts out fear. We quoted from 1 John. That notion that there's no fear to be able to be who you want to be around your friend. Notice to continue. "And when your friend is silent, your heart ceases not to listen to his heart." What a beautiful line. In other words, you don't have to communicate with words. We'll get to talking in the next passage. But you don't have to communicate with words. You can read each other. And of course, friends have always kind of said this about each other, no question. "For without words, in friendship, all thoughts, all desires, all expectations are born and shared with joy that is unacclaimed." In other words, you always want the best for your pal. And your pal always wants the best for you. If you are in a relationship with someone that you call a friend, but you're always a little bit guarded and you're always a little bit worried, Gibran will argue, that's not a real friend. A true friend is somebody who's with you all the time and is always going to be pulling for you all the time. Notice, When you part from your friend, which is kind of an inevitability. I mean, think about John Donne's valediction forbidding mourning and the idea that it's sooner or later you probably do have to leave your pal. When you part from your friend, you grieve not. In other words, if you have a real relationship, again, we are back to John Donne's valediction forbidding mourning. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net if you want to run that to ground. It's a beautiful poem where he writes to his wife and he fundamentally says, we're pals, we're friends. And because we're pals or friends, it doesn't matter whether we're together or not. You'll remember he uses that powerful example of the compass, right? The two legs of the compass, but they're joined at the top. And of course, this spiritual view of friendship. He says it this way, for that which you love most in your pal may be clearer in his absence. Think about that theodicy. Ask not why this is happening to me, but for me. When friends are separated, you begin to really understand the value of your pal. And then he uses this simile, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain. It's a beautiful word picture. I love these word pictures, don't you? He says, when you're actually on the mountain, think about hiking Fuji, classic example, right? When you're actually hiking Fuji, you can't actually see Fuji because you're on the mountain. You only appreciate Fuji as a mountain when you're a ways away from it and you're driving up to it. Or think about, of course, those of us who love to hike in the Bighorns or to hike the Tetons or whatever. When you're on the mountain, you don't actually understand the mountain. It's when you're further away. Why? Perspective. Here we are, back to that Platonic term, perspicacity, insight, that ability to really understand the value of what friends actually mean in our lives. And let there be no purpose in friendship save the deepening of the spirit. I love this idea. We mustn't be calculating in our understanding of our friends. Oh, I'm your friend because I can get this, this, and this. No. The only reason that we are pals is the deepening of the spirit. I love that notion of the spiritual, the interval view, that's all that really matters. For love that seeks aught but the disclosure of its own mystery is not love. Now, of course, we're back to the opening passages early in lecture number 3 on love, right? For love that seeks aught but the disclosure of its own mystery is not love, but a net cast forth. It's another amazing word picture. And only the unprofitable is caught. I think his critique here of friendship is so brilliant. We spend so much time with frivolity, silliness, when we should be spending way more serious times enjoying our pals, just being together. And this is kind of how he finishes. And let your best be for your friend. Now, we're going to talk about the energy conservation model. You'll remember that we talked about this when we did Thoreau's Walden, and we were talking about the idea that simplicity, to simplify your life. Energy conservation, don't waste all of your time. When you are with your best pal, enjoy that experience for what it is and nothing else. Look how he says it. And let your best be for your friend. If he must know the ebb of your tide, let him know its flood also. In other words, be willing to be vulnerable, to expose yourself, both the good times and the bad times. For what is your friend that you should seek him with hours to kill? In other words, wasting time. Seek him always with hours to live. And of course, any of us that have lost a close friend, I mentioned St. Augustine's Confessions, classic example. Once we lose that power, we then begin to understand the value of the time that we could have had. And so he says, any time that you're with pals, it's precious time. Even if you're doing silliness, it doesn't matter. Recognize it as precious time. And that will improve your understanding of both your friend and yourself. Seek him always with hours to live, for it is his to fill your need, but not your emptiness. In other words, strength builds strength, right? It's a great way to think of it. And in the sweetness of friendship, I love that idea. The sweetness of friendship, let there be what? Laughter and sharing of pleasures. I love that he mentions laughter, because that's one of the hallmarks of a friendship, isn't it? That you spend most of your time laughing, some of the time crying, some of the time arguing, no doubt. But a real friendship is always about mostly joy, laughter. For in the dew of little things, and we can't help but think of Tintern Abbey, little nameless unremembered acts of kindness and love is that great portion of a great man's life, right? For in the dew of little things, The heart finds its morning and is refreshed. Friends, real pals, let's just jump to 2A, remind us that in life, it's the little things that really do matter. And those are the moments that we consider most precious. Of course, again, your friend is your needs answered. The only purpose at 2A of friendship is the deepening of the Spirit, the developing of the Spirit. And again, think about how this passage works rather nicely with teaching. Because in the end, that's what all great teaching is about as well. At 2B, I love the word picture of seeing the mountain. I mean, it's a great word picture, right? You don't, as they say, appreciate things until you don't have them. Oftentimes when you're in the middle of whatever the catastrophe or the challenge is, your friend is the reason that you get through. It's only after the fact that you look back and go, oh, yeah, I remember that. At 3A, there's so many passages that come to mind here. Remember what Polonius says to Laertes in Hamlet 1:3? We've given full lectures, of course, at Hamlet at learnstrong.net if you want to run it to ground. But do you remember what he says? If you have friends, those friends thou hast, grapple them to thyself with hoops of steel. Why? Because it's so easy to lose friends. You know, it's so easy to distance, to passing, to all kinds of issues or challenges. So if you have good friends, take good care of them. Finally, at 3B, how can we own a passage like this? Well, who do you share this type of an experience or relationship with? And have you told them recently how important they are in your life for that very reason? Now, to finish this little trinity of these 3 poems, from teaching to friendship, all of a sudden we'll move to talking. And that will be, I think, a fascinating moment as well, because, of course, great friends often will enjoy talking. Thank you.